From Chicago's Can TV, a look at the week's events is reported in the newspapers, in the blogs and online, and on radio and TV. This is Chicago Newsroom.
Well, hi there. Welcome to the show. Once again, it's Chicago Newsroom, and we're just about a week away, a little more than a week away from the massive, hugely anticipated Illinois primary election. People everywhere are just making plans for how they're going to get to the polls a week from Tuesday. The other night, I was out at Harlem Irving Plaza, and there was palpable excitement just outside Kohl's as young shoppers were debating each other about whether Bruce Rauner's ties to Stuart Levine are going to hurt his chances, or whether the AFSCME endorsement of Kirk Dillard means that lots of public service union members are going to switch to the Republican Party. There were kids from Elmwood Park High School who were yelling about how Governor Rauner would finally fix the pension crisis, but then there was this gaggle of girls from East Leiden, and they were shouting back that Governor Quinn's been the best governor ever because of his aggressive infrastructure program. Well, we just have to get through the next few days of political tension, and soon enough we'll know. But just to amp up the energy even further, we brought in a couple of veteran political observers today who are going to be joining us, and when they're through, you'll have all your questions answered about the Illinois primary. Our old buddy Carol Felsenthal is here once again. Carol, glad to have you back.
Glad to be here.
Political animal, writer, author, Chicago Magazine, et cetera, et cetera. And from the large 89, John Dempsey, back again.
Ken,
glad to have you.
How are you? I just think it's such a great thing for democracy that those young people were at the Harlem Irving Mall, and they were so engrossed in this election.
It happens all the time.
It's just outstanding, isn't it?
They just yell at each other. Yeah.
Well, the question is, do people who aren't young, but people who go to the polling place, how much they know about this four-white man race for the Republican nomination?
I was going to say that.
How tuned in are people?
None of the kids were talking too much about Rutherford, though, I must say.
Yeah.
They would have if this was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
Well, he was supposed to be the man of the four who was going to be
the
number
only
two.
Republican who won a statewide office.
Only Republican won a statewide office. He's a very likable man. I went and covered the debate at the University of Chicago on Tuesday night. There was another one last night, and I believe there's a third one tonight.
Yeah.
And Rutherford, because nobody pays any attention to him, it's not worth it to attack him. Most of the attacks came at Rauner's expense, but Brady and Dillard were going at it. And last night there was a great moment in the WGN debate where they were talking numbers, and Dillard said, if you understood the numbers better, Bill Brady, your company wouldn't be bankrupt. And he said, on the air threatened to sue him.
On the air, he threatened to file a defamation suit. He says, you better watch yourself,
because my company's not bankrupt.
Yeah, he says, my business has struggled, and he builds houses in central Illinois, buys up old farmland and puts up, houses. And he's had big problems financially since the recession and everything. And he, like Carol said, he basically threatened on air to sue Kirk Dillard. But it's interesting that last night on the Channel 9 debate, we really saw people going after Dillard. Even Rauner went after Dillard. He said Dillard would be better off in the Democratic primary than in the Republican primary because he's gotten all this union
we should
support.
Explain. All of a sudden, all the unions are lining up like he's Joe Hill or something.
Yeah, it's exactly like it's Woody Guthrie reincarnated. But the thing is, it's not so much a pro-Dillard thing as it is an anti-Rauner thing. These union people do not want Rauner to win.
And they don't want Dillard either, so they're going to vote for Quinn.
Because I believe that if Rauner wins, he has a very, very good chance of beating Quinn. I don't know how you feel about that.
No,
but
I think so.
I think Rauner has a great chance of beating Quinn. I think Dillard has a great chance of beating Quinn. I don't think that Brady can beat Quinn. And I think Rutherford is obviously not going to win the primary.
Right, and poor Rutherford, he can't. He has these allegations of that he forced people to do.
But he's handled it horribly,
which doesn't speak well of him. But that he forced people in the state in his employ to do political work, and then of course there's a sexual harassment thing, and none of this will be resolved by the primary. So I called a guy who is the most accessible, nice public servant, and that's Ray LaHood. And I happened to be interviewing him some weeks ago, and I asked him, who are you going to support in the Republican primary? And I thought he wouldn't tell me, and then he just immediately said, Dan Rutherford, he'd make a great governor. We've known
and this
each
was
other
after the thing came out?
No, that was before.
Oh,
then I
before.
called him back, and he's one of, we were talking off air about how Rahm Emanuel will not give me an interview or ever be responsive to any of my questions.
He wants to control things.
But Ray LaHood, there he was the day that the Capitol was shut down because they got 5 inches of snow. Ray LaHood is now working for a law firm. He's not showing you that revolving door in action out of, but he's a very nice guy. And I said, who are you supporting? He said Dan Rutherford, and so he's sticking with him. But I think what's going on here now is that the union people, who are really not Republicans, despite what Dillard was saying.
Dillard says a third of these people are Republicans.
They're softening up Rauner for the kill during the general election. And I believe that Rauner, there was a poll that came out yesterday that showed him still way ahead.
40%.
Anything can happen in politics. We know that. It's more than a week away. On a week from next Tuesday is the primary election. But they're giving Quinn his playbook for how to get Rauner. And there are a number of things they can get him on. And this is going to be, if it's a Rauner-Quinn election, this is going to be the election. It's going to be so exciting to be here in Chicago covering this thing, because Joe Biden has promised to come in as much as Quinn wants him to. He said he'd come in several times. Hillary Clinton will be here. Bill Clinton will be here. And Barack Obama will be here, because Quinn says, I'm not going to run away with it from him like others are doing. I want him to come here and campaign.
Early on in the Rauner campaign.
And Michelle.
Early on in the Rauner campaign, I heard some people saying, oh, it's just another rich guy trying to buy an office. I think this guy is a lot more than that. He's run a flawless campaign. He has stayed on message. I want to shake up Springfield. I want to bring back Illinois. I want to fight the union bosses. And he has just stayed on message, which is why I think, Carol's right. In the general, all of the big guns in the Democratic Party are going to be coming here, because I do think Rauner can win the election. Even though this is a Democratic state, the suburbs of Chicago are where this election is going to be decided. Yeah. And Rauner, it's interesting. He openly, I think it was last night, and he said this before, the guy is pro-choice. Yes. Yet he is still going to win the Republican primary. That, I think it says something about how a lot of moderate voters in the suburbs are saying, you know what, we're tired of waking up and seeing these headlines about this red ink and this pension crisis and Pat Quinn is incompetent. We really need something else. And I think that's why Rauner is so far ahead in the polls, even though he is a social moderate.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Excuse me, but you bring up a very good point, and that's, I was sitting there in the second row watching the exchange about abortion, and Dillard, Brady, and Rutherford all claim to be
anti-abortion,
pro-life. They're pro-life guys. And then Rauner, who is married to a woman who is progressive in good standing, Diana Rauner, who runs the OUNSA Prevention Fund. That's the Irving Harris funded, good organization, great work. I'm certainly pro-choice. In fact, when Rauner runs, the right wing of the party is going to go after Rauner's wife as being a radical pro-choice person, which I've already heard. But Rauner said this is a decision for the woman, her family, and the doctor. And abortion is always a tragedy, which I think I remember Bill Clinton saying. So, but nobody,
that's the Bill Clinton parsing.
Nobody paid much attention to it, but it puts him in very good stead for the general election. I heard a guy on your station whose name I can't remember. He's a financial guy who has a show on Saturday afternoon, and he told Larry Kudlow, and he told in a very articulate, passionate voice, he told Dan Proft and Bruce Wolf that Rauner will definitely be the next governor, and he was quite persuasive.
Well, I was going to say that the big winners in all this are going to be John's station and ABC, CBS, NBC owned and operated stations and all the Illinois media, because you know, the last couple of elections, Illinois has been kind of, the Illinois TV stations have been kind of shorted, but not this time, brother. The money is gonna roll in.
And you know, and for this gubernatorial race, Illinois is not going to be, wouldn't be able to call it a blue state. This is going to be a very competitive election. And Bruce Rauner, you know, these awful commercials, but obviously people are paying attention to him, where he stands on his head and shake up Illinois, and you see the same thing over and over and over again. And even if you're not following it, you eventually come to know who he is, and that's why he's doing so well in the polls. Well, but the unions, Bruce Rauner in 2012, made $54 million a couple years before he was only in the 27s and 28 million in income. He can afford to do this, but there's going to be a ton of money spent by the unions. They're not going to give the State House to a Republican. Bruce Rauner may be rich, but you're talking about a conglomeration of very wealthy people who are going to come in and pour money into defeating him.
Have you seen the commercial, the union backed, the union paid for commercial regarding the nursing homes? Have you seen that one? There's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
Because the story is that Rauner's hedge fund bought up all these nursing homes back in the 90s and ran them into the ground by being cheap and pinching pennies, and then because of the inadequate care, a number of people died. So they were sued, and there were judgments against the company, which I think didn't even put up a defense, because according to Rauner, I think he was asked about this last night, the lawsuits were deemed to be frivolous. But it's a very effective ad. It's got Rauner, and it goes from color to black and white, and then we have these pictures of the three old ladies who died. And if that's being run right now in the primary, can you just imagine the kind of stuff that's going to be run in the general?
I can't.
You know what they're trying to do is they're trying to define him the way the Democrats successfully defined Mitt Romney. There are a lot of parallels between Rauner and Romney, but they've got essentially two bad marks against Rauner. One is this nursing home business, and Rauner said, I didn't own the company when these deaths. We no longer own the company. He is no longer connected to the company. And the other thing is the Stuart Levine thing, which brings you right back to Blagojevich.
Right. But now, John, you said something very interesting. You said that Rauner has been successful because he's been able to stay on message. And you sound like you're saying that those of us, I'd put myself in that category, who were critical, saying this is just a rich guy trying to purchase the election, and that's what I've said many times. When you have all the money and you have all the power to control the message, you don't have to stay on message because there is no message. In fact, Rauner's message has been no message at all. He didn't attend most of the public forums in the beginning, and has just essentially stayed on the side, just.
But you don't think the things he has said in his commercials about,
I want to shake up Illinois. Okay, well, so does Pat Quinn.
No, but Pat Quinn is not saying I want to shake up Illinois. No, Pat Quinn is saying we need a chicken in every pot, and all he talks about is spending money, and we have to look out for this person, and we have to look out for that person, and the poor defenseless people, and that that's a very important message.
And what's wrong with the poor defenseless people?
No. I'm not saying there's something wrong with that, but Illinois is bankrupt. We don't have any more money to spend, and that's what Rauner keeps
I get
driving.
so tired of that. Illinois is bankrupt. I mean, everybody's bankrupt.
But we did get our bond rating lowered, and we did. Chicago did, and the city of Chicago did, and you do hear these comparisons, which were once dismissed as being totally out in left field, but as now, we're only 3 ticks ahead of
becoming another Detroit.
But the thing that you would not hear if you listen to AM talk radio is that Illinois is one of the least taxing states in the country, and that despite what everybody says about how we're losing business, we're actually gaining business, and business is doing very, very well in Illinois
and around the country.
And around the country. And we can't even have a conversation about whether there's a possibility of beginning to deal with these pension issues by putting some money on the table. No, We have to demonize the public service workers, and that's Bruce Rauner's only message.
Right, but
demonize
he's
the
stayed
firefighters,
on
the
that
police.
message.
Congratulations, he stayed on.
He stayed on.
And he's made it
And
very good.
look at with the 40% in the most recent poll.
Yeah, and he'll quite possibly
Dillard
write
is
that
in
message
second place
into
with 14%. He's got almost 3 times the support.
Right, and Dillard was in last place when the big poll was done.
Right.
It was
Tribune
Rauner, Rutherford, Brady, and Dillard.
Right.
But Bruce Rauner, his other message is that he's an outsider. He's a businessman. He's Mike Bloomberg.
He's an
come
outsider.
to. He's an outsider.
Right.
He's an outsider
in the
politics.
way that Mike Bloomberg was an outsider.
But
the
the
way
other,
that Rahm
the
Emanuel
other
Any
way,
outsider can pick up Arnie Duncan and get him on the phone.
But Rutherford, Brady, and Dillard are all associated with Springfield and the mess in Springfield. And the other big message that he has is term limits. If there were term limits, Mike Madigan wouldn't still be Speaker of the House, and he will be governor for 8 years. He's not going to go back on that because he'll probably want to run for president. He's not. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be.
Because it will impinge on his ability to make money is why he won't.
But he doesn't need to make money anymore. Not only that, he's got 9 homes. He's got, the question last night that the WGN debate, which I thought was a very good debate, and he was asked, he clouded his daughter into Walter Payton, the top
allegedly
school. He
admitted it. He's told a number of different stories.
When I interviewed him last May, he admitted that he called Arnie Duncan. Couldn't remember whether it was Arnie Duncan or
who wouldn't make a phone call.
But wait a second. So the question to him was, why not New Trier? Because he has a house in Winnetka, but he has a penthouse overlooking Millennium Park and two apartments, one for his kids, one for him, and then he and his wife, and then but she has siblings who go to the Latin school. She's the epitome of school choice.
Right.
She could have gone to New Trier or
But my
to
question
Latin
is,
school.
why not clout your daughter into a charter school with non-union teachers? Because then she would save money, right?
Yeah, but then he would clout her into the charter school that has his name
on it. Right? Why not? But see, that's
Well, look at what's happening in New York. Just to say, when the charter school things, there's a big fight between the very progressive left of center new mayor de Blasio of New York and the governor Andrew Cuomo. And I think Andrew Cuomo is winning. People want charter schools, and that's another big Bruce Rauner message. And that's why the teachers are endorsing, the teachers unions are endorsing Dillard.
And Rahm.
Why? Wait, say that again. The teachers unions are endorsing
because they don't.
Dillard?
Not that they want Dillard. They don't want Rauner.
They don't want Rauner.
They don't want Rauner, and they don't want charter schools.
Yeah.
Right. They're hopeful that by getting people out to vote for Dillard a week from next Tuesday, that Rauner will get fewer votes and that Rauner may lose. That's their strategy. But again, the question is how many committed, union members, left-leaning union members are going to go and take a Republican ballot.
Yeah.
I think some will, but I don't think enough will.
Not enough to
affect this election.
The gap is too wide.
They're investing in the eventual defeat of Bruce Rauner. They're putting this money and time
muddying
and
him up
messenger.
now.
They're dirtying him up now, so that Quinn can beat him.
So it sounds like both of you believe that Governor Rauner is going to happen.
I think nominee Rauner will happen.
Well, yeah.
What happens with Quinn, I think it's going to be one of the really big, fascinating races.
Quinn is brilliant strategically.
And he's a fighter.
And he's a fighter, and he will do everything he has to do.
Oh,
he's been living
Right,
for this moment and preparing for this moment his entire life.
What's fascinating to me is how many times, in the last, year or so, 2 years, well, actually since Quinn's election, that we've gone through these cycles of Quinn's dead meat. That's it. It's over for him. I mean, he can't survive this.
Right.
He's an amazing guy. He's a fighter. He'll get through this.
And he will sling mud with the best. People think that because he's so, and he does it because he believes that he's right. And he believes that he's pure. And so he'll get down there and he'll fight dirty. And it's going to be, and Rauner is I think Dillard said that Rauner's a lot of things, but one thing he's not is stupid.
Yeah. Right. Well, I've been actually pretty solidly holding to the position that Quinn beats Rauner.
You think Quinn will beat Rauner?
But in the last week or so, I've started rattling on that a little bit.
Now,
and I'm
why
not
have
so
you
sure
changed
anymore.
your position?
Because of what you were saying about Rauner having the ability to be rock solid on his essentially simplistic two-point message, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to shake up Springfield and
Crack down on the union bosses.
I'm down on the unions. That's it. That's his whole message. And you are right, John, that it does resonate very well among those kind of moderate suburbanite types, and many of them live in Chicago now, but they're in Chicago. Those kinds of people who really, I think you put it very well, are just kind of like waking up in the morning and saying, "Ugh, I'm just so fed up with this. I just want this over with, and this guy will fix it."
Can I give you some stats? And I don't. Maybe this is relevant to our discussion, but in 2010, Quinn beat Brady by 31,000 votes. Mm-hmm. Also on that ballot was Mark Kirk versus Alexei Janulius. Yeah. Mark Kirk, who is a moderate Republican, got 65,000 more votes than Bill Brady. Uh-huh. And I've looked at the Board of Elections website. The majority of those votes, majority of that difference between Bill Brady and Mark Kirk were in the collar counties, in the Chicago suburbs. Yeah. So if Bill Brady had been able to get half that vote, he would be the governor now.
Right.
But he didn't, both because he ran a horrible campaign and because of his very, very right-leaning positions.
He's not a good politician.
He's not a good politician. And Rauner, we're not going to see these kind of numbers when Rauner is on the ballot, because all of those moderates who voted for Mark Kirk and put him in office, I believe, are going to put Rauner in office.
I think that there's absolutely no question that there is a huge cohort of Illinoisans who would just love to put a Republican in the governor's mansion.
Well, we had a Republican for go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, for the simple reason that they're just tired of this single-party nonsense that's been going on.
Well, but look at what Ryan went to prison just as Blagojevich went to prison.
You had 2 terms of Blagojevich, and then you had Quinn, who's everyone admits he's a nice man, a very, very nice man, very honest.
Except when he wants to win an election.
But look at, we've been talking about pensions. The recent pension reform bill that passed in Springfield, which is now before the courts, Quinn was pretty much on the sidelines. He just was like, "Oh, you've got to pass this. The future of our children is at stake." But he didn't really do anything behind the scenes. It was all the muscle of
Mike Madigan. Right.
So how do you fix the pension thing? We only have a couple of minutes, and obviously it's not simple. But is the answer to the pensions just basically crush the unions? Does that solve the problem?
I don't know if you switch people to a 401k.
Which is what Rauner wants to do.
I don't know how that crushes the unions. And if you say to the people who've already earned benefits, we're not going to take away anything that you've already earned, and then you switch, especially younger workers, to a 401k, how does that crush a union? I don't understand that.
All right. You know what? We're gonna.
I'm just throwing it out there.
We have just 2 minutes left, and I really want to talk about this thing about Soldier Field expansion and Mayor Emanuel, who has been portrayed in the new CNN show Chicagoland as a guy who stands up and never backs down. And I'm thinking, well, that's pretty weird. He backs down on a lot of things.
Right.
Yes,
I think he's going to have to back down on the Soldier Field. I think it's a lemon of the
But
plan.
to his credit, he hasn't actually said that he wants it. He's just throwing it out there. There's a
great quote by an academic at the university.
Samuelson?
I saw it
in the
Tribune. He said it's like putting lipstick on a pig, and an ugly pig at that.
Right.
And I think Rahm came out too fast on that without having the research. Usually he likes to have all his ducks in order. And he also came out with it on the day that our credit rating in Chicago was lowered. And so the timing was horrible. But also, the Soldier Field is a mess.
It's a mess. Daley ramrodded it through. Right. It's ugly. And what Samuelson said in the Tribune today is that you need to just blow it up and build a brand new stadium with a retractable roof.
Yeah, we only spent $800 million.
Yeah, but
that shows you what Daley did to the city.
We can sell it to Laz Parking.
Yes.
But what do we do with this professor is saying build it somewhere else. Build it on another piece of land that's not right.
But
now we have the spaceship on the lake.
We could have Star Trek or Star Wars conventions.
We've had this debate has been going on for 100 years in Chicago about the lakefront stadium. But I thought it was interesting that there's been so much criticism of this $55 million TIF thing for the DePaul Stadium. And yesterday, unless something's happening that I am not understanding, it looks to me that the mayor just quietly dropped it and is putting the $55 million into the hotel because he thinks we can build the hotel more quickly, right?
I think that is, there's not going to be a DePaul Stadium. I think that's going to be where the casino goes.
You think so?
That's what it's preposterous to spend tax dollars on a stadium for DePaul. They were good at basketball in the late 70s and the early to mid 80s. Give it up. They're not going to be a national powerhouse.
It also just raises the other question that we absolutely don't have time for, but it's like, are we still chasing this golden goose of the convention and tourism? Well, not so much tourism, but the convention business. It's like we keep adding more and more infrastructure, and I mean, look out 50 years. Are people going to be flying into a city like Chicago to sit at a meeting? I mean, come on. That just seems to me like it's just there's always going to be
everything is going to be done electronically,
or something.
And people are going to look at their screens. I think that the big conventions
we send our avatars or something.
But people still want to do those things, and it's a big
boost
to a restaurant business. And if you look at the area that McCormick Place is in, it's really an underdeveloped area, and people want to live in the city. That's the near south side. It's a very attractive place. So I see that much. I think the DePaul Stadium has been gathering criticism, and it wasn't. I mean, maybe the city council would have woken up because Rahm, they're lemmings for Rahm Emanuel, with a couple of exceptions like Scott Waguespack and Fioretti, who may run against Rahm.
Yeah. And Michael Daley, I think, according to Dan Mihalopoulos in the Sun-Times,
was great
Michael
reporting.
Daley showed up at
wasn't that interesting?
fundraiser.
Showed up at a fundraiser, right.
They're tired of Richie taking it from Rahm.
Because Rahm
and I mean, we saw that yesterday with the Soldier Field thing. I mean, it's like it was just a chance to attack Daley without mentioning.
We should have done it right the first time.
We should have done it right the first time.
Right.
We've done it again. We've come to the end of yet another scintillating discussion. Hey, it was really fun having you guys here today, and we'll do it again sometime. John, we got to get you back here more often.
Thank you.
You come over here from WLS-AM.
Yes.
John Dempsey from WLS-AM, the Big 89. Carol Felsenthal, author, writer, Chicago Magazine, The Hill, all that. And we'll see you next week with another program. You have been watching Chicago Newsroom. It's a community service of CAN TV. You can see us all the time on CAN TV. But if you go to this address right here that you see on your screen, you can check us out at any time by watching us on YouTube. Or you can check us out on iTunes, and you can have it right in your ears anytime you want. I'm Ken Davis. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week on Chicago Newsroom.